Micrófono jest muzykę. Można walec to nie micrófono celular. No. Ya no hemos hecho a la fuerza, ¿no? Ya te no, ya excelente. ¿Qué es lo Strabo? ¿Qué es eso que
When you mic enough, do you prefer for me to use a microphone or my voice?
your voice?
Yeah, I think it's. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're using this for the streaming, and this for.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay.
Let's do it.
In the room. Let's go up the numbers. Yeah, so I'm Spiros, and I'm going to talk to you about local first applications today. It's something that I tried a while ago, and I was really excited about this technology. Just maybe of context so that you understand kind of like where I'm coming from. I used to be a developer for a couple of years, then I turned into a PM for 7 years, and then I realized that I maybe prefer doing development, so I went back to development last year. And now I'm working as a product engineer at findbar.io, which is a find a solution company. And last year, I had my entire 13 months free to work on my passion project, which is Makuro.app. It's a project management tool, and I spent 30,000 of my savings and a year building that. And I'm going to share some learnings about this, but specifically in the context of local first applications. So as I said, I was a PM up until 2 years ago, so I'm only going to scratch the surface of this new trend of local first applications. I'm not going to talk about the technical implementation of CRDTs or get into more technical details, but I will give you a lot of pointers and links and people to follow in order to get started if you decide to ever build an application this way. And of course, I will share some of my mistakes while I was working on this project, my project. So, as always, when trying to define a technology, there is a white paper. And this white paper was written about 20 years ago from a lot of smart people. You might recognize Adam Wiggins. This is the CTO and co-founder of Heroku. And this is a common thing that is permeating across this technology. You will see a lot of people who build other things that kind of getting in here, trying to jumpstart this technology and increase the adoption. You will see Kyle Matthews from Gatsby, the person who created Gatsby. You will see Johannes Schicklin, who co-founded Prisma. So, yeah, you own your data in spite of the cloud. It's obviously a juxtaposition between the insecure, as the white paper says, cloud and your application locally, and how you own your data and how interactions are very fast. The white paper describes certain principles, so you can read them. It's about no spinners and everything being secure and your fingertips. A diagram is always helpful, and traditionally you would have your front-end application, which will make requests to your backend server. The backend server is usually close to the database, gets the data, and then serves the data to your front-end. With this setup, actually, you have the local store, right? And you either build a system for that, or we're going to see some of the tools that are doing this work for you. You communicate with your local database. So it could be an IndexedDB from your browser. It could be an SQLite database. And then you do all the saves and writes and reads there. And this local data store is syncing with the backend on the cloud. What I'm keeping from this technology, what I'm excited about is the benefits in the user interaction. You have probably seen and used a lot of software, especially in the SaaS territory, where you have to wait, for even half a second, even 200 milliseconds might be a lot, and contribute to, a death by 1,000 cuts while you're using the old Jira, project tracker. And as always, there is a white paper from Jakob Nielsen about UX that talks about these different thresholds of interaction time. So below 100 millisecond, interactions are perceived as immediate. You don't understand that there is a delay. Beyond 1 second, you lose the user, and beyond 10 seconds, you've completely actually lost them. And most of these apps promise this. They give you this promise of 100 milliseconds, below 100 milliseconds latency, so that it feels like you're opening a file on your desktop, right? But you're actually accessing data that your user edited 5 seconds ago, your colleague edited 5 seconds ago. And speaking of colleagues, this is another thing that comes for free with these setups. You get instant changes and syncs from other people, whether it is, you're saying different tabs in the same laptop, or if it's this other colleague at the other end of the world making a change. And also, you're going to see a lot of this person, Thomas Hartman, who is the CTO and co-founder of Linear. He talks a lot about the sync engine that they built at Linear. And there are some benefits in the developer productivity from this setup. For example, because you're talking to the local store continuously, you don't have to do a lot of networking, REST API calls. And also because the latency that matters between your browser and the local store, you don't really care how far the backend or the database is. Like, especially for applications that you don't really rely on seeing the other person's feedback immediately, like when you're in Figma, you want to see the cursor immediately moving. But if it's something like a CMS, it doesn't really matter if the change happened 3 seconds ago. And 3 seconds is it's a crazy big latency number for other applications, but if you don't care about your application being slow and handling things very slowly in a queue, you can have a very cheap server and cheap database handling all these backend mutations, and you will just be talking fast with your local store. So one of the things that people tell me and ask me about this technology is that there are so many tools that have been new, and this is a new technology. How many companies have really used that in production and have scaled? And the first companies that come to mind are these three. Superhuman, this is this Gmail competitor, this very fast email client. They were famous for two things about 6-8 years ago when they went live. The first one was this crazy onboarding setup where they always pair you with an account manager and you have a personal video call of the person working with you through the platform. The second was this. They built some sort of very fast, low latency syncing solution, and everything they did was free under 100 milliseconds. That was their UX threshold. And paired with keyboard shortcuts, you were able to fly through your emails, kind of like go to inbox 0 immediately and chain actions, sort of like a combo in a video game. So these were the first company that I noticed being very fast. Linear is obviously a very famous company for the quality they provide in their UI, the velocity, the faster performance that they have when you're editing content there. And these people spent, I think, 3 years, because I saw the first blog post in 2020 when they were talking about this linear sync engine that does all this work with syncing locally and remote. And then I saw another blog post 3 years later, so they're definitely building this for a while. They have the 1 to 3 persons people thing. So that's one thing also that I really like in this technology. You get the tools to do what Linear has spent building for 3 years for almost free, or the fraction of the cost. This is one of my favorite things with the tools that I'm going to show you indeed. And also Figma, if you use Figma, you know how fast it feels. Everything is collaborative, immediate. The co-founder of Figma talks about how they did the traditional operational transformation paradigm as they went for CRDPs in order to get the collaborative editing features working fast and smooth. The last one is obviously not a scalable, not even a famous product, but this is the thing that I built last year. So Maturo is a tool that I've been wanting to build for a decade almost. And since I got the time last year, I basically built it from scratch, and I wanted to get more acquainted with technologies that I have lost touch in the 7 years I was at PM. So I kind of went crazy with all the technologies. And Maturo is a project management tool. It has your tasks, kind of like Linear. It has your feedback management, like product code, and it also has your help desk support with the messaging component. I noticed that a lot of small startups rely on these tools to get feedback from the customers, and then turn this into work. So this was the tool that I built. And I'm going to try to walk you through the code base for a bit. I'll actually first go through the application. So for the Infinite. Okay. All right, so I think you get the gist, like from this UI, you can understand that this is kind of like an intercom kind of thing. So you take the conversations and you bind the conversations and you add nodes of feedback that you might have received from other sources. You can connect this feedback to tasks and projects, and then you manage the tasks. So I'm going to create a task now. I'm working online, so yes. I accidentally pressed the wrong button. I'm going to write another one. And this is created immediately, right? Let me open up the network tab. You can see what's happening. And I'm also going to open another tab. And push it to the limit. It's crazy. This laptop has like a RTX graphics card, and you see how slow it is in the state of modern applications. Crazy. All right, and we're going to look at the network tabs, which I can't find in this one. All right. So let's say that I want to post a comment, and I talked before about immediate sync. So whenever someone makes a change, or if I post a comment here, I'm going to see it to the right immediately. So what's happening under the hood is I'm going to post another one. Yeah, I guess I need to go there. So one tab is pushing imitation, right? And this tool that I'm using for local first is called replicas. What you're doing with what this tool does for you is that you define your limitations. So what I did here is I posted a comment. So limitation, I gave it a post comment name. There are arguments like the text, the connected tab, task, project, and so on. And then on the other end, which is the tab, or it could have been another browser of another user in another location in the world, it's pulling the change, and the payload response is the delta of the changes that happen. So it could be a put operation, it could be a delete operation. And how this works is that this is transaction that is listening to the, or actually I'm committing some transactions to the local store, and then this go into a queue. The local store save happens automatically, of course, in like 20 milliseconds. But then replicas, the sync engine takes care of pushing the queue to the backend, and then the backend listens to this queue and this other queue and these other different changes that happen, and it takes care, of course, of conflicts if there are any. And based on the, you might see, yeah, there's a client group ID, there's a push version. So these are some counters that you can understand where the changes stop and where you need to apply the other changes, or when to pull for changes when you connect up to like 1 hour. So you can see the version of the server here. It's like 1462. And I'm pulling all the changes to the application. So this is kind of like how it works with all these tools in the network. And I'm going to do a very quick walkthrough of the code base. How much time do we have, Larry?
You have another 5-10 minutes.
5 or 10?
10.
7.5. Right. So do you remember
time.
this diagram that I showed you before? This is the tech stack that I'm using. I started with React.js in the front end, but transitioned to Solid.js because I just wanted to play with it. But also it turned out to be a very fast solution for a lot of data. I had like 1,000 tasks in one screen with a lot of interactive elements on top, and it was rendering very fast. The backend doesn't really matter. I used Warmup, but it could have been an Express application with a very thin layer of handling just the pull and push functionality. And I'm using Prisma to store my data to a simple Postgres database. So replicas is the thing that I'm using for doing all this syncing between the front end and the local data, which is an IndexedDB. In other cases, it could be an SQLite database. And also there is an optional socket.io polling mechanism, because Replicast doesn't listen to the server, but you tell it whenever there is a change. So let me walk you through what I just showed you in a little more detail. So if you work with Prisma, I think this is familiar. It's just my schema. It's a very typical database schema with models and everything. The difference is here. You get your last modified version, which is a number, a counter that increases with every change you make. And there's a deleted because Replicast actually doesn't, it supports soft deletions only, which is a small annoying thing. And then there are the Replicast specific models where the system keeps track of which browsers and which browser tabs get connected and what is the latest version. So that when the server is at the version of, let's say, 500, and my client is at the version of 445, I get the remaining 55 mutations from just basically where, let me show you. I'm just querying the database where I'm saying like where is last modified version of data from this version of the browser, and then I'm pushing just the changes to the client that's just connected. Also, when I'm pushing changes, the mutation that I showed you before, it's a very thin layer of just transforming the mutations into changes via Prisma to the database. So this is the backend. In the front end, yeah, I'm doing this silly thing where you're adding context to the application. But in this provided, let's say to the task provider, which is where I'm getting the data for the task. What I'm doing with Replicast is that I get this object from Replicast and I'm subscribing to the changes. So whenever there is a change that's coming from the backend, and Replicast listens to it and it writes it to the local store, to IndexedDB, this code is responsible for pulling this change, and then it sets it to a local context that I'm applying to my application. So there's a more performant way to do that, but yeah, I do that and it works because I load the entire thing, because you might want, for example, to get all the labels in the task, right? So whenever someone adds another, let me do that. In settings, I'm gonna add another label. And without loading the other application, I need to see the new label. So test. So this should have shown up here. Yes, here it is. So that's why I'm listening to all the data changes and I'm subscribing to them via Replicast. You've seen a lot of boilerplate code that I had to build, like this pull code and this push code with mutations and all that. But the thing that has been maybe that annoyed me the most in this setup was that Replicast is a key value store. And if you've worked with basically any application, you know that most of them are relational. You have users that connect to tasks, tasks that connect to projects, projects that have comments, comments that have labels. And these are all relations. And with Replicast and most of these syncing tools, they come with a key value store. So whenever you need to manage relations, I had to go and create manual mutations of handling the IDs. For example, when I'm moving, let me go to the mutations. So when I'm moving a task from a project to another project, I have to go and remove from the existing project, add it to the new project, and handle all the relations manually, which is not ideal. I'm not really proud or even confident that this code works 100%. So that's one of the things that I didn't like. Yeah, so I tried also other tools for a couple of weeks, but I'm not going to go into details now. So lots of these tools are new, and you have to be patient and maybe sometimes try out because many of them are beta. I work with Electric SQL, for example, which is a tool that promises that it does the thing with relational databases. So you just update the model and the relationships are updated automatically. But they were not ready, for example, like the mutation didn't work out of the box, so that was a problem. Some other challenges with local first in general is syncing large amounts whenever you have a large application. And let's say this application has like 1 gigabyte of data, and then someone signs up. What happens when they need to download everything to the local store? The first load will be, I don't know, like 1 hour of downloading data. So this is not ideal. Obviously, there are ways to do that by progressively syncing older and older data, but there's not, batteries included solution with that. The relational updates I talked about. Incremental adoption is tricky. It's not like React or TypeScript where you can have both in the same system, but you basically have two huge systems talking to the same database. So either go all in from the start, or you redesign an existing application. So if you want to get started, if what I presented to you makes sense, I found that a good fit for this kind of applications are mostly B2B SaaS apps with a lot of text-based content like CRMs, ARMs, productivity tools like Jira, and so on. In general, when you have to make a lot of changes and go back and forth to the database, and these kind of B2B SaaS applications, they require the user to do a lot of interactions. So by saving these small milliseconds, you actually improve the quality of life for the users. A bad fit for this is most B2C applications where it's actually better to cache the data, and the first load really matters. So you can't wait for 3 seconds for someone to go and buy in your e-commerce site. You can't, of course, use this with media heavy site. You can't download like 5 gigabytes of video so that they're fast in your application. So if you're falling in the left column, there are some tools that you can get started. So I use Verticas. It's great technology. It's also very cheap. It's free basically for companies below $200,000 revenue, and if they have like a lower amount of funding or not. But I will probably get started with either PowerSync or Electric SQL. So Electric SQL back in June was not really ready, but maybe they have improved since then. They handle a lot of the boilerplate code for you. They provide you a sync engine that you can deploy, and then you talk to that instead of building the things yourself. They provide relational updates, so you don't have to worry about managing relations with tasks and projects and comments and so on. And there's a special shout out to LiveStore, which is an early access tool, but it was created just recently from Johannes Cityjs. Johannes is the co-founder and ex-co-founder and ex-CTO of Prisma, and he's one of the people in the industry that I really admire. He really has his finger on the pulse of new things, and he's been having this local first F.FM podcast also, where every episode is great. Like he talks to, there are 19 episodes, and every one of them is perfect, so you can watch that. So this LiveStore is his product, and if you want to try it out, you can just go and just make a donation in his GitHub repo of $5 and you can get access. There's also this local first web.dev. Maybe you can also visit that first and have a look at the people you can follow. A lot of other tools. There's like 50 tools that you can use. There's even the traditional CouchDB that we used to use in the past, Firebase, and some new ones, more experimental. So you can try out many different tools if you're experimenting for that. And I think that's it. How are we in time?
Very good.
Okay. Yes, do you have any questions about anything, about local first applications, about Makuro?
How did you get into, what put you to go to the local first?
Slow B2B SaaS application. Every application, I think almost every application we're using, they're always loading, and as it gets bigger, and the load becomes bigger, it's slower. And as we're working on SaaS applications every day, it becomes increasingly frustrating. So since I wanted to build a project management tool, I also got pretty much inspiration from Linear. These are the guys who are doing great at this. So yeah.
It's cool.
I know this is maybe not the exact target of this, but have you thought of P2P, like peer-to-peer local first stuff instead of,
No, not yet. I don't trust myself to build a system that doesn't have a central authority.
Are we good to go? Great. Hello, everyone. So, when I was trying to create this presentation and I was trying to do the rehearsal, I was like, okay, it's a presentation that I like, so I need to find a very good intro. So I was like, trying this, no, it's already been done, try that, no, and then it hit me. I had to do the best intro ever. So, I'm making an intro about myself. So I'm here. I did the most unique thing that every presenter does nowadays. So a couple of things about me. I'm a software engineer at CodeGrade. I'm also a tech ambassador at CodeHub. Yes, these are two different companies. I'm also starting a new thing right now. I'm a co-producer on a podcast called Control Life, along with my friend Theodoris Karopoulos. For now, it's for native speakers, for Greek native speakers, so you can give it a try if you want. I would love to get your feedback about this. On the right, you can see what AI thinks about me nowadays, because AI is a hot topic. I couldn't resist for the trend. You see, after ChatGPT updated the memories, it collects everything about that knows about you and tries to create an image. Just to tell you that it goes right the dog, but it's different breed, and that I like a futuristic setup, which is okay. But yeah, the rest is just hallucination. So, something. Let's dive into without further ado. Let's dive into our story today. Today we're going to get along with a journey about upgrading a project that was built in 2017 from Webpack to Vite. So every great story needs four things for me: a hero, a villain, a journey, and a plot twist. Okay, let's test that along our way. Our story starts more than 6 months ago, where my team assigned me a customer that it was a fintech company with a huge project. We were like for 2 months there creating analysis for products, how can we modernize their stacks, how can we get some loads from builds and bundlers, and every time our journey leads back to one project. For the presentation, we will call it Project Zero. Now, when I was conducting my report, we need to refactor a lot of things in Project Zero. I was sure that in no way in the upper management, no one will certify this. No one will tell me, okay, get the time you need, get everything you need, just do the refactoring. Because it was a very core project, and every other project was building on top of it, so the risk was high. So one day, it was I think a Wednesday, my team leader burst into my office and he's like, "You will never believe it. What happened today? I got the good to go. We're good to go for the project. We're good to go for Project Zero and upgrade it to it. Do all the modernized stuff that you imagine, everything, all the project from the analyze. But there was only one catch. There's always catch. And he was like, okay, I made some discounts in our time. You ask for 2 months, you get 2 weeks. You ask for 2 months and possibly go to 2 months and a half, you get 2 weeks. Okay, so we were like 5 developers, all front end, trying to do parallel stuff. So we like, everything happens. But why everything is happening? So like, why when you ask something, you never get what you want? But you get, we get what we get. So without further ado, let's get roll up our sleeves and dive into our project. Right now, the project in the state before the transition to Vite, it was active on daily basis. We were like 1.1 million daily concurrent users globally in 10 or 12 countries at the time. These users create like 2.2 million microtransactions daily. Development teams, about like 10 front-end developers who were actively working on that project, create new features every week. The project was built in 2017. And just a note that this project started 7 years ago, like a POC, okay? Like a proof of concept about what the project could do with using Vue.js framework. Let's dive into the stack. The project was built with Vue 2 in version 2 these days. Now it's in version 3. They used to have Vuex for store pattern. For those that coming from React, it's similar to index. Of course, they had Webpack, Jest for unit tests, and this is where the good stuff starts. They had an SSS framework, all of it custom made from the design team, from color variables to themes to functions to media queries. Everything was handmade. No UI framework at the time, no Bootstrap, no nothing. During the years, some developers added Tailwind in order to have some comfort doing some stuff. The project contains more than 220 dependencies, dev dependencies and normal dependencies, and it was built with Node 40. Now, I told you that we were a front-end team, but I already included PHP on play because the project was built using a custom server-side rendering. And we will talk about this in the future. So I'm trying to settle the stage for what we had to face. Now, the first battle that we had to fight was upgrade the project from Node 14 to Node 20. I know that right now, 6 months ago, the LTS for Node.js was like version 22, but there was some conflicts with DevOps teams, and they asked that the higher we can go was Node 20. From Node 14 to Node 20, it's like 7 years of new things on the engines. Everything was brand new, actually. But we give it a try. I told you that we had 220 packages that we had to upgrade. Of course, we didn't do it all by hand. At first, many of these packages were out of order, or obsolete, or no one used them anymore. Did I mention that the project was legacy? No, sorry. Our project was a legacy project, but there are always new features about it. The code was legacy, the stack was legacy. So a lot of packages were out of order. Some of them could not upgrade to Node 20. The developers, because they were open source, developers dropped the support out of them, and we were stuck in old version because we could not upgrade to Node 20. So what we had to do is just delete everything that was out of order at first. Then we had to specify to delete all the Webpack related packages because we were in transition to it, and all the Bell packages because Webpack uses Global and Global presets about this, but it doesn't. So at first we cleared the clutter a bit. We managed to get the packages to 100 and something. So the rest were like code that we didn't use. So at the end, we had to mark some unsupported packages and then find the new ones and replace them. Now, someone could ask, how did we do that? How did we manage to solve all these things about Node packages? With an ancient technique of try and error. If you can imagine, and at least when I heard about try and error, I imagined someone smashing his head on a wall and betting that the wall will track faster than his head. So this is what we did. We're just upgrading something on the project, but it fails. One. This stuff all for packages. Next up, we have the custom server-side rendering. On your right, you can see the mental health of my team at the time. Flames everywhere, people were cursing, bursting stuff. So we had to deal with custom server-side rendering. Remember, it's 2017. There is no next, nothing. So when people want to get ahead for SEO, they just have to create, if they're running on PHP, an index.php file, host your file there, your project there, and when they want some data to be on board before the rendering, then they just inject the data to the DOM. Nice. A lot of security concerns about this, but it was a way. So our fellow developers 7 years ago decided that this was a good idea, so they tried to inject data directly on the DOM and then use them before the initial render. So the SEO crawler could be on time. Now, they use PHP for that, but if any of you have already worked with Vite, you will realize that Vite doesn't like anything else besides HTML pages. Okay? Normally, in a project, in a front project, you have an index.html, which is cool. There's no PHP, no C#, nothing. So we had to delete the whole index file, create a new one called index.html, and try to migrate everything that we could. Now, in this server-side rendering stuff, that they created. They also had some third-party libraries, scripts, log rocket stuff, or stuff that monitored the user about their behavior. Everything that they needed to do, they just inject it on the DOM in this page. So we have to make a huge transition from this file to the other, from PHP to HTML. But we must do that by smashing our heads to the wall again. And then the next battle was the custom design system that I told you before. You see, when you start to create something, especially the less experience you have, you will find yourself create something new. For example, I want to build something. I find a library. It's not 100% customizable to what I want. So what's the better way? I'm a developer. I can do it. Imagine to be a builder and not be able to build a wall for your house and buy a wall. No, I will create a wall for my house, right? No. Or you can do it if you have your own project. When you're in a company-wide project, enterprise-wide project with a potential scalability in mind, then custom is good, but not always the solution. So our friends there decided to create a whole of SSS variables, snippets, queries, functions, with the queries, whatever. It was a gem, but it was custom. Okay, so there is a problem about this customization. Vite supports SSS out of the box. You can just type write your SSS code, and Vite will transpile it to Sharp and you to CSS, and you will have it in your project. But in order to do so, it creates what you can see in your screens as the code snippet. You have to add it in additional data of something called preprocessor options. Essentially, this means that if you have any variables in SSS that must be resolved before the rendering, then you must pass them as a file for the bit to understand and transpile them. You cannot do this on the fly. With Webpack, it was easy. Just import your file, everything will work magically. But here, we had to split our design system into. At first, we had all the variable stuff, variables, functions, etc., and then we have to have all the styles, the blocks styles, directly injected in our components. So this was another thing that we had to face. Eventually, we split their system in half. Half was passed as a preprocessor options, and the other half injected directly into the components. Another battle for us. Now we have some minor stuff. Something that I didn't know, and I first encountered this project, is that in Webpack, you could input colors in SSS file directly and use them as a JSON objects. Personally, I just saw them here for the first time. It's one way to do it. Okay, so our friends there tend to do that a lot. Whenever they need a color to translate it from SSS to CSS variable, then they just use this method. They just import the file. Webpack did the magic for them, and then they can just use an object and get the color from that object. Okay? Guess what? It doesn't work this way. So, thankfully for us, the fix here was very simple. We just had to use a flag in Vite called export, where you inform Vite that okay, this is an SSS file, nice, but I want you to translate it in JSON for me. So. Thankfully, this worked well for us, no fire here. Next, we have the SVGs. At the project, we had all this that they wanted to use SVGs directly into the code to avoid bringing assets during the build. So in Webpack, we had require, but this had to change because we required something Webpack specific and not Vite specific. So new URL come into place, but new URL has its limitations. It's a browser feature and not a Vite feature, which means that Vite doesn't compile anything inside your new URL. So any dynamic paths, any variables, they're just not recognizable. So this would not work. Either this would not work, but glob pattern would work perfectly. So we had to translate everything that the users require to new URL using the glob pattern. Next up, moment, of course. You don't have a 2017 project without having moment for anything there. So yeah, there was one more patient there. The main problem with moment that we faced was that we wanted some localities based on the country that the site was built for. A different locality for Greece, different locality for US. Nice, moment supports that. But what moment doesn't support is the async import with dynamic variables, because yet again, they use global pattern. So we could not just simply use this, where we can inject the counter code into the import. We had to move in a solution like this, where we had to create a bunch of if-else statements, unfortunately, in order to cover all the cases where we had a different counter code. Yeah, we find this with the pottery again. Now, web workers. It was a huge surprise for me that web workers created. I thought that web workers was not created before 2017. Yeah, it means that they had web workers in 2017. They used it for heavy stuff and to handle data from sockets. They were using webpack loaders like the syntax you see on your screens in order to use the dynamically workers inside. Thankfully, Vite supports that also using the new URL and the type module, and we got this part fixed too. Now, custom plugins. Of course, there were custom stuff because I mentioned like 3 custom stuff until now, and there are more custom plugins in Webpack where they use them for essentially copying files. They write custom Webpack plugins to copy files after the build and move it directly to the PHP site, or export icons and feed them to CDNs. So thankfully, Vite also support that out of the box for us. Either way, some other developers had already the same issue, so we get their plugins. Or Vite provides a very easy documentation and very helpful documentation to create your own plugins. Now, Storybook. Of course, there were Storybook. But when we thought that Storybook would kill us or something because Storybook is very heavy on Webpack, thankfully, Storybook team is very active. And after version 0, if I'm not mistaken, they upgraded their whole stuff from Webpack, and they support Vite now. So we delete everything from Storybook there. We upgrade to version 6, to version 8, and we have this beautiful code snippet when you can inject your own configuration into Storybook configuration and do all the changes you need with Vite, and no Webpack in the way. Now, of course, I told you that the stack had test. From test, we decided, no one forced us, we wanted to do this with ourselves, and go from test to Vite test. Okay, because we wanted more better times for our tests. And can you imagine how this was? Seamless. It was the big surprise of the room that the transition from test to Vite was seamless. Okay, yes, we had to create some changes in the code, but no fire there too. Now, the good news about this transition was that bundle size reduced by 30%, load times of the initial render of the project reduced by 50%, load times during the save and the hot module reloading when the developer save, and the time needs for Webpack to spile everything, reduced by 70% with Webpack. The tests run faster thanks to Vite test, and of course, the developer's happiness increased by 20%. This is actual metrics. So, the lessons we learned from this transition is don't trust your manager about timing. No, I'm just kidding. Is that whenever you want something to be done, of course, you will not have the time you want, but the time you get. Now, Vite is not a silver bullet. It cannot do anything yet. For me, it was a very nice experience. It was a very nice journey. I realized that Webpack used to do a lot of magic things under the hood, and that you didn't realize create a lot of bad patterns if actually, because of these magic things, let developers follow some not so good patterns during their code development. The best lesson and the best advice that I could give to anyone who wants to do the same is analyze your project. Do all the analysis, everything that you need to do. We spent like 2 weeks to analyze and 3 weeks to develop. So a lot of these were not so much of surprise, or more like expected. Read your docs. Your docs is your friend. They have very good documentation. Find your features, what your project does and what Vite does, and try to combine them. And check out for Vite plugins because they have very good. They can create a lot of custom stuff for you. Thank you. That's all from me.
talk's generally very effective. So we're going to continue the talks. This next one is going to be from Christina, and we're going to be learning a little bit about accessibility and the European Accessibility Act. Take it away.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. If not, please feel free to let me know that I need to speak louder. I am Christina. I work out as a global service architect, and I'm specialized on accessibility services, and I work for Atos. I have more than 15 years of experience in telecommunication, and my career started as a software engineer, and I've also been working as front-end developer with focus on accessibility. This is how a bit my journey as accessibility started. I don't want to go into the details, but what we are about to do today is learn a bit more about accessibility. I don't know how familiar you are with this topic, so let's start diving a bit into that. What is accessibility? With the term web accessibility or digital accessibility, we refer to this practice, the inclusive practice of removing barriers that prevent interaction with or access to websites for people with disabilities. Based on W3C, web accessibility means that websites, tools, technologies are designed and developed so that people with disabilities can use them. More specifically, based on W3C, we should be able to perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web service, with the products that we have, and also contribute to the web. One quick way of testing how accessible your product is to try to use your product without using the mouse, just with keyboard. You will see probably that you cannot do the same things as you can do using your mouse. So people with disabilities who tend to use assistive technologies will not be able to interact with these products and services if you don't have accessibility in mind. There are different types of disabilities. We have visual, auditory or hearing disabilities, physical, speech, and we shouldn't ignore age-related conditions and cognitive conditions. Concerning disabilities, what we also need to have in mind is that this could be something permanent, something which is temporary, or something that is situational. You can see here some scenarios. I don't want to go into details, I will just give an example. For example, if we look at the Dutch, we have someone who is permanently born with one arm, so he has one arm less to interact. Someone could temporarily not be able to use one of his arm because maybe he has broken his arm, or situational, like in the case where a mother has a newborn child, so she cannot use her other arm. And these are things that we should keep in mind. What we need to also have in mind is that web accessibility benefits also people without disabilities. For example, imagine now we are all using text-to-speech and speech-to-text capabilities. It all started years ago because someone wanted to be able to interact with the content, especially if it was a person with disabilities. Even wearing their glasses is considered an assistive technology. And it helps everyone using mobile phones, smartwatches, smart TVs, especially people of elderly age. They are considered as a category of persons with disabilities. And these are cases where we see that accessibility can also benefit people without it. Some facts, why should we care? So based on the World Health Organization, we have 430 million people worldwide with disability hearing loss, 2.2 billion people who have near or distance vision impairment. So in general, based on World Health Organization, 50% of the world's population live with some form of disability. And these numbers are increasing because of the aging population. Also, if you are not aware, because of this 15, there is this movement, We 15, which represents 15% of the population who are people with disabilities. In reality, it is 1 out of 6 of us. So, as I said, persons with disability rely on assistive technologies. Assistive technology is any device or software or equipment that helps people with disabilities work around the challenges and be able to interact with the medium, with the mobile or the laptop. And we have different types of assistive technologies. We have screen readers, So if you are not familiar, a screen reader is a software that runs on your laptop. Once it runs, whatever is depicted on your screen, it will be played out. If it is just text, it will play out the text. If it is an interactive element like a button or a checkbox, they will be able, if your code is written properly, we will talk a bit about it later, they are able to announce to the person using the screen reader that this is a button and this is the action that you should take in order to activate it or not. Another type of technologies is our screen magnifiers. So these are tools where you can focus on part of your screen and magnify. And as I mentioned, speech to text and text to speech, as well as Braille. Braille is not so widely used, so you will see that most people with vision impairments, maybe they are not familiar with Braille, but they are very familiar with using screen readers to be able to interact with devices. In general, there are standards and laws that are around accessibility. The most universally accepted is the WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. In the US, we have Section 504 and 508. In the European part, we have EN, I will not you see the number. And what is very interesting is that Canada recently adopted the guidelines that we are following in Europe. What is new, and we will talk in detail in a few minutes, is the European Accessibility Act. This will have an effect on 28th of June 2025. And based on that, all the EU member states will have to implement in their local laws the European Accessibility Act, and this applies to all products and services. And it's not only for governmental services, some may consider, but it's about all products and services. And as we will see, this gives for the first time to the European citizen the opportunity to file a suit to a product or a company if this product or service is not accessible. Something similar already exists in this data, the Americans with Disability Act. And in general, it's very crucial to know that you have country-specific standards and legislation. So if you are planning to use a product in a specific country, you should better check what are the standards and legislation there. As I mentioned, the most widely used and known is the WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It defines how web content should be made in order to be accessible for persons with disabilities. It is developed through the W3C process, and it is organized by 4 layers. We have the principles, we have the guidelines, what are the success criteria, and the techniques to achieve it. The principles of WCAG, as we also mentioned at the beginning, is called PUR. So it is perceivable, content can be detected, operable, it means that the content should be manipulated, understandable, it means that the person interacting with your content should be able to understand the content, and robust, it means that it adheres to standards. We have different levels of performance, and we usually tend to focus on AA, which, as you see here, is should have. A is must have, is the bare minimum, and AAA is good to have, and almost always it's very difficult for a product to achieve AAA conformance level. So let's dive a little bit more on the European Accessibility Act, which will affect us. So the European Accessibility Act is a directive, it's not a regulation, and it is a landmark for EU law. Maybe you have heard about a similar act, which is around artificial intelligence. They are different. They may have some bridges, but they are different. It's all the initiatives by the European Union to move forward our software and capabilities and put some structure into the chaos and make the software equal to everyone. Based on the European Accessibility Act, as we said, every product and service needs to be accessible for persons with disabilities. This act puts a robust mechanism to ensure compliance with accessibility requirements. And as you see here in the bullets, every member state needs to make sure that there are regular compliance checks Compliance are reviewed and followed up. Companies take the necessary action to achieve this, and people know which authority to turn into if they have any complaint. This will take effect on 28th of June this year, in just less than half a year. And this is, as I said, the most significant change. Citizens will have the opportunity to sue someone. Imagine when this happened in the States, there was a very known example where a person with vision impairment tried to order a pizza from Domino's and they weren't able, so they filed suit. So not only Domino's would have to pay the fee, but they had to spend a lot of money in order to rebuild their product with accessibility in mind. So this is very crucial. What services and products are covered by the Act? Almost everything. You will see computers, operating systems, smartphones, communication devices, TV equipment, ATMs or payment terminals, e-readers, any ticketing or check-in machine, and of course the services. I don't want to go into this detail. UK is very advanced in terms of the accessibility, and many people developing software are very familiar with the strict standards followed there around accessibility. However, those are stricter for governmental services. What I have to underline for everyone is that with this app, this applies to everyone. It's not about governmental services. It's about every product that is sold within European Union. So, one last thing before I close, I don't want to bore you. Accessibility is not something like that can be treated as a feature. It's not a one-time thing. Usually, I resemble it with the security. So you don't want to build your product and then at the end consider the security implications. Similarly, you don't want to build a product and then at the end consider the accessibility implications. You should adapt your processes and development pipeline in order to include accessibility at every stage. These are some guidelines of how you could achieve it within your organization, and this is something that you should repeat regularly. In high level, you need to adapt your tools and processes, as I mentioned, and you need to assess your team's need. You need to monitor about all the tools upgrades, and for example, if you are using a library, you need to understand if they are making an update which may offer also a library that can make your components accessible. So you need to be aware of that and follow it. And of course, at the end, you need to review all your processes and tools and do it repeatedly. Thank you. I hope it wasn't too much.
Hello. Is it start? Yeah. Hello, everyone. I am Abhinav, and today I'll be talking about how you can build your own YouTube clone using the ImageKit's video API. And I am sure that some of you have already worked on uh, some project that involved video streaming or anything related to videos. And I'm sure it's pretty daunting while working with them. So, let me go ahead and give you a brief about what ImageKit does and about who I am. So, I have been working with ImageKit for the last 5 years, and currently I am the tech lead. And I focus mostly on building the video and the image APIs. And I'm sure that you've heard of brands like Philips, Tata Digital, Traveloka. These brands use ImageKit to resize, optimize, and deliver their images and videos. So, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Uh, so, I'll go ahead and show you a demo of what we'll be building today. So, we have an application here that looks very similar to YouTube. It has a list of videos and it has a couple of things that are sort of hard coded, like my name and the categories above. But let's go ahead and try to stream a video. So if I go ahead and start playing it, and let me just open a different one. I think my network is. If I just go ahead and start playing it, you can see that the video I can seek, and I have a quality selector that's very similar to YouTube. And what yeah. So auto basically means that we have the ability to modify this viewing quality of the user depending on what their network speed is. This is what ABS is, and we'll talk about ABS or adaptive bitrate streaming in a while. And we also have an option here to directly upload any video. So let me just go ahead and try to upload a new video, and let's give it a shot. So I have, yeah. So as you can see that the video is uploading and it should take less than a minute to get it done. Let's wait. Oh, perfect, in time. So we have the video that's shown up here, and we can go ahead and start streaming the video, and it'll play as it is. So before we actually dive into uh, building the project or building the entire application, let's discuss a little about what the major components of an application like this includes. So, as many of you might have already thought of, that it has a front end, it has a back end, that's basically our application server, and you have an encoding pipeline that's connected to some sort of storage where you're storing all the videos. And obviously that the encoding pipeline is very complex. It's gonna be it has a lot of components. You are gonna upload a video to it. It'll start creating thumbnails. It'll start creating the ABS playlist that we'll talk about, and a couple of other things to make sure that they're delivered properly across the web and across to every device that is there. And this is where actually ImageKit comes in. Our aim with the video API is to simplify the whole process of allowing developers to, so they don't exactly have to worry about the complexities of implementing a full-on video encoding pipeline and even set up the entire infrastructure to do it all. So let's get started. You can follow along. I'll provide you the repository links that we are going to be using. And essentially, the project is divided into four simple, easy steps. We have setting up your ImageKit account and cloning the repository that we have. So this application that we're building, it's not exactly a complete YouTube clone that has all the features, but we will tackle the most critical feature, that is video streaming. And I do have a boilerplate ready for anyone who wants to follow or anyone who wants to follow later on when seeing this video on YouTube, they can just go ahead and directly clone this repository and get started. So let me just clone this repository and set it up right here. So I have most of the dependencies installed. So let me just go ahead and run yarn install. And yeah, let's give it a minute. Perfect. So once you're done with installing the packages, you can just go ahead and start a server. And when you actually start a server, you can check it out on the URL that's provided there. So yeah, we have a starting point. And firstly, what we'll do is we'll start with implementing the upload functionality. Now, I have a small form here that has title, description, and you can just select a file to start uploading. And for uploads, we'll be using our Next.js SDK. Let me zoom in a little bit so that it's visible for everyone. So yeah, we have the ImageKit SDK right here. We'll be using the Next.js SDK because I have went ahead and made the project in Next.js, and it's pretty simple, straightforward to do so. So we'll follow the documentation and let's get rolling with that. Firstly, we have to install the npm package, which we've already went ahead and done that. And next step is to initialize the SDK and set up the environment variables. So let's go into the code. Yeah. So I have the code right here. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Yeah. So I think that should be visible. Okay, so the first step was to set up the environment variables. So in the project, you'll find a file called env.sample. Let's just go ahead and rename this to env.local. And we have to find these values and enter them here. These values can be easily found in your ImageKit account provided here. So you can find these values right here in the developer option under the API keys. So let me just go ahead and add this value in. This is the URL endpoint. We need the public key and we need a private key. Now, so if you actually log in via Google or or if you have an SSO provider configured, you'll have to configure a password for you to be able to see your private key. So yeah, so once we have that, we should actually see that Next.js has automatically reloaded the environment variables and we are good to go. So let's see what the next step is. Oh, sorry. Let's go here. Yeah. So let's actually move directly to uploading files. So we have a component here that's the IK upload component, which will render an input file tag element. And this is provided directly via our Next.js SDK. And we'll have to set up an API route in our backend. So let's understand what exactly that is. So when you're uploading a file to any server, what you'll essentially end up doing is directly accept the file on your application server, then store it in S3 or some kind of object storage, or even like in a hard disk attached to that server. But instead, with ImageKit, what you do is your application server will generate a secure signature that the ImageKit API, the upload API is going to use, and basically that signature will act as an authentication directly from the browser to upload your assets to ImageKit. So to achieve that, we have to define the backend API first. And this can be done directly with our Node.js SDK that also I have installed in the project itself. But it is available in all of our server-side SDKs. And let's just go ahead and add that into the auth API that is here. So let's go ahead and replace this imagekit.get authentication parameters, and let's check it out if that is working. 3000 imagekit auth. So we can see that we have a token, expiry, and signature. That's the values we were hoping for. Now, to actually allow our SDK to communicate with your backend, we have a function here that you have to define. It's called an authenticator function, which is going to essentially just call the backend API and get the values that we just saw and assign it to the request. This can be done by using the ImageKit provider. The provider is nothing but a set of configuration. It holds a set of configuration values that the SDK uses internally. So let's go ahead and actually configure it. So I'm going to go into the app.tsx, and I have already added in the code right here. So let me just go ahead and uncomment it. So yeah. So once we're done with that, we have the upload working. So let's go ahead and set up the upload. So to upload, we are using the IK upload component that I mentioned previously. So if I go into the upload file that we have, so let me just bring this onto my screen. So I already have added a component here. Let me just remove the old button that I've added for the demo. Yeah. So we have the component right here. It's basically a wrapper for the standard HTML5 type file element. So we have all the standard props that are involved in that here. And we have something called some other parameters that are allowed in this. These are your upload configurations, and you can just go ahead and set these values in just to make sure that the files are uploaded in the correct folder. If there are a lot of different parameters that you can fine tune according to your requirement. And we have some events here that just gives the user a feedback as to what the progress of the upload is. So while I'm here, I'm gonna uncomment the progress bar also on the screen. So right now for this demo, we have a file that needs to be uploaded. We have a title and description that needs to be saved in some sort of database. Now, in this demo, I didn't want to complicate things by setting up a database or creating all the APIs. I just went ahead and saved these values in a feature that by ImageKit. It's called custom metadata. Now these custom metadata are predefined fields which you can assign to your particular asset, and you can get these values when you're requesting these files from our APIs. So we have the custom metadata assigned here. So once we have that, let's actually try uploading it for bigger fun. And let's select the file here and let's see. So will this upload or do we have a bug? Yeah, perfect. So the video has been uploaded perfectly, but we don't see it here. That is because these values are coming from a JSON file that is hard-coded in the project. So to do that, we'll just go ahead into our list API that we have created in Next.js and just replace it by fetching all the files from ImageKit, and we'll say sort by descending created. Let's get the latest files on the top, and we'll say path is /cityjs videos, and that should be it. So let's go ahead and try that out. Refresh. And we see the two videos that we just had. So we have the video that we uploaded during the demo and the one we just uploaded, but we are missing the thumbnails here. So let's go ahead and add those in. Now, to create the thumbnail for any video that you have, ImageKit provides you with an API by which you just have to append IK thumbnail at the end of the uh, URL of the video that you're requesting, and ImageKit will generate a static thumbnail for you to use. Now, these thumbnails are intelligently detected based on what browser you're doing so that we end up delivering the optimal format for that. So let's go ahead and add that in. We'll use our Next.js, Node.js SDK again, sorry about that. And we'll say that the src is, actually we'll say that the path is, we'll say file dot file path slash ik thumbnail dot jpg. And we'll also go ahead and add a query parameter. We'll say updated at, and we'll say new date. Let's convert the updated at value we get from the API to a timestamp value, and we'll just assign it here. So let's, once we've done that, let's go ahead and check it out here. So we see that the thumbnails have shown up, and the videos that we just uploaded also have thumbnails already prepared. So now when we try to open a video, it's not going to open because, as I mentioned before, it's coming from a hard-coded JSON. So let's go ahead and correct that in. So for this, we'll use the ImageKit get file details API. Now, yeah, we have the file details API, and we'll just add in the same code that we had here for the details, for the thumbnail, and we'll just use that. Perfect. So now if I go ahead and open any video, so for example, if I open this, we have a thumbnail as a poster for the video player, and I can go ahead and start playing the video. So at this point of time, we are ready with a basic video streaming setup. But at this point of time, we are missing the quality controls that we had. And without those quality controls, what happens is that if you're on a very slow internet, it is gonna, you are gonna see that awful buffering or loading screen. Now, to actually counter that problem, we'll use something known as adaptive bitrate streaming. So, adaptive bitrate streaming is nothing but a uh, actually, very simply put, adaptive bitrate streaming is when you take a bigger video, you have like a 1080p video, and you go ahead and make variations of it. You have a 1080p, you have 720p, 480, and 360. So, and these variations are intelligently changed on the user side depending on what their network conditions are. So, like if you're on a very slow internet and you basically you're on 3G, you might not be able to stream a 1080p video or even a 4K video. So at that point of time, you'll watch a 360p video, and the browser or the video player actually has to intelligently detect that and request those variations. And similarly, even if you're traveling, when you have good internet, you're on Wi-Fi or you're on 5G internet, and you are able to stream a 1080p video, but for a brief moment of time you lose network, or it slows down to a 3G level, or your speed drops to 5 or 6 megabits per second. That is when the video will start losing a little bit of quality, and that is when the video element in the browser is going to switch to a 360p video for the time your network was slower. So that is why you see whenever you're traveling, you see like YouTube buffer playing very crisp quality videos, and suddenly when your network slows down, it goes down up to 240p. So for implementing adaptive bitrate streaming, we have a lot of different protocols available in the market. So we will focus mostly on the two most popular uh, protocols. We have HLS and we have Dash. Now with HLS and Dash, what you essentially do is create a manifest file. A manifest file is nothing but a text file that contains all the variations that we just generated. Now, so like, and it has some information about what bandwidth the video needs to have to be able to stream it. So as you can see on the screen, there are a couple of, there is a sample manifest right there, and it says that it's a sample M3U8 manifest. M3U8 is a file extension that HLS uses. There is a similar manifest created for a Dash based adaptive streaming. So let me show you how you can implement that using ImageKit. So as we just implemented the thumbnail feature by just adding a suffix to our main URL. We can go ahead and add a ikmaster.m3u8 or mpd uh, suffix to your main video, and you are ready to generate the ABS playlists or the ABS manifest. For generating specific resolutions, we require some way to actually go ahead and tell our servers what resolution you want. So for that, we have a feature called transformations. Now, transformations are a very powerful and a very broad feature, which I will not go into very in depth right now. Everything related to transformations is available in our documentation at imagekit.io/docs. So about transformations, there is like a string that allows you to modify any image or any video that you have while delivering it. So we have the image transformations. That is, you can just resize it, you can optimize it, you can put overlays on it. There are a lot of things you can do. And similarly, we have video transformations. Now, one difference that we have between images and videos, since videos are larger files, they take time to process, and it can take anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes. So the video processing happens asynchronously and the image processing happens synchronously. And to actually specify what resolutions you want to create for an ABS playlist, we have a transformation called SR hyphen your whatever resolutions you want. We support resolutions up to 4K, and we have them documented right here. So actually, let's go ahead and update our code so that we are generating the ABS playlist. So I have the code for it right here. So as you can see that we have generated a URL using the ImageKit SDK, and we have the file path and the suffix right here. And we've added a transformation for streaming resolution 240p, 360, 480, 720, and 1080. So let's just go ahead and replace that in here. And let's check it. Before we actually do that, we need to tell our player that we are uh, sending an ABS playlist. So we are just going to go ahead and enable the quality selector we had down below. So let's go ahead and refresh this actually. Next.js has some problem with rendering video.js components. Now we have the video playing here. We have the quality selector. If I go ahead and just change that to 360p, I'll start loading up 360p chunks, which we can actually see in the network tab as well. So if I actually go ahead and refresh this, and let's see, we are loading the 240p resolution right now. But if I go ahead and play it, we're still loading 240p. And we started loading 360p because at the start of the video, the browser did not know what my internet speed looks like. So it tried to load the lowest resolution possible so that the video starts playing. And as soon as it is able to, it downloaded 360p seconds. So since we just uploaded this video, let's go ahead and open it. As I said, the transformation is asynchronous video processing, takes a little bit of time. So we see this loading indicator. Now, to avoid this, we do provide certain webhooks that you can use to actually see if the video has done processing or not. And similarly, we have a post transformation. Now, post transformations are a way for you to just directly upload a video and immediately create transformations. So, like you uploaded a video, you're telling us that as soon as this is done, please generate a ABS playlist and be ready with it. So, we have the post transformations for it. And when you request that, we'll send you a webhook with the file ID and a couple of other details that you can just go ahead and save it in your database or your application server to actually send the ABS URL. So let's go ahead and configure the webhook. So if I go ahead and go into the webhook, I'll say const file ID is equal to req.body.data.file ID. And I'll say await imagekit dot update file details for file ID, and we'll say custom metadata ABS is true. So we'll use custom metadata again to actually detect if the playlist is ready or not. So we have that, and let me just go ahead and start the ngrok server so that we have the webhook coming into our local system. So yeah, the ngrok has started, and let's go ahead and uncomment this section that we had for post transformations. So in this post transformation, this is directly under the IK upload component. We are requesting an ABS playlist within protocol of HLS, and these are the resolutions that we want to be prepared. So once we're done with that, we should have this. And let's go ahead and upload another video. So this time we'll say for better joyrides. And we'll use the same description to save time, and we'll upload this video. So let's give it a second. Yeah. So the video has uploaded, and okay, that's weird. Oh, it just took a second. I think there was some kind of local caching in my system. Yeah. So we have the video. It has shown up on the listing page. And right now, if we go ahead and open it, it's gonna keep on loading up until the video streams are ready. What we can do is here that we can just have a conditional as to if our custom metadata says that the ABS playlist is ready, serve that. Otherwise, just serve the original file URL. And let's go ahead and try it out. So as you can see here, the video started playing immediately. And let's see if the webhook came. Oh, about time. So we have the webhook that's just arrived, and we see that we have the file ID and we have the URL of the video that has been generated. Now, oh, it has loaded already. So we can see that the quality selector is available here, and I can just go ahead and change the quality of the video, and that's pretty much it. We are done with implementing a basic YouTube application with adaptive bitrate streaming to provide a very seamless streaming experience for the users. So that's mostly it from my end. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and just let me know. Yeah. Also, the entire project is available on the GitHub link that I showed before. I'll just share it on the screen again. Uh, there is a branch called Final, and the entire end product that we just built out is available there for anyone to use. So, yeah, thank you. So I think, do we have any questions? I'm mute the entire time. Fuck. Why the fuck did no one?
Yes.
Okay. Is it all loud enough? Okay, we're gonna wrap up with the last talk of the day by Dimitris,
Sorry.
which is gonna be React hook form a migration story. So we got the last 20, 30 minutes today. Let's pay attention and we'll do a big round of applause at the end.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Great. Yeah. So, hello everyone. I'm very to be here. Share our journey migrating from Redux form to React hook form library, a position that me and my co-workers worked on for the past year. This whole process taught us valuable lessons, and today I'll discuss the reasons that led us to take this step, the challenges we faced along the way, benefits we gained, and practical tips we've learned as well. As I've mentioned already, my name is Cityjs. I'm a front-end engineer at the Droplet Group, and I hope this story of problem-solving, of collaboration, of growth resonates with you, whether you're reimagining legacy systems of your own or diving into new solutions. So let's take a look at the agenda. What do we have for today's session? We'll start by exploring the limitations of Redux form and the reasons behind our migration. Then I'll walk you through the challenges we faced during the process and the benefits we gained. I'll share our migration timeline, a small code sample so you can get a taste of what we've been working on, and finish the presentation with some practical tips that help that helped us with our transition. So starting off, why we moved away from Redux form. A decision like this is it's kind of hard decision because, as you can imagine, such a migration takes a considerable amount of effort from our side, from our dev side. First of all, the library is not actively maintained. It's effectively deprecated, making it harder to stay up to date with the latest React version. Moreover, Redux form required heavy boilerplate, making our code harder to read and maintain. Furthermore, Redux form is tied to an outdated logic because it was designed for class components and global state, and this doesn't align with the latest React practice right now. Additionally, the implementation is prone to performance issues, specifically in larger forms, and overall it has a larger packet size compared to React Hook. Now, having discussed the limitation of Redux form, you can imagine that our decision to migrate stems from several compelling reasons. Firstly, React Hook form is actively maintained, meaning that we can update the latest React version with more ease. RHF, I'm going to use RHF for React Hook form, so bear with me. RHF integrates seamlessly with modern tools we currently use in our project, such as GraphQL and TypeScript. This effort, if you will, effectively help us future-proof our code base. Just as important, we reduced our boilerplate, of course, with the help of RHF's simpler API. We've managed to reduce our code, making it simpler, more readable, and at the end of the day, easier to maintain. Remember, less code, less problems. In addition, RHF is designed for functional hooks-based components and fits naturally with modern React. Last but not least, this implementation does boost performance by reducing renders and leveraging local state, which it does quite efficiently because it's using its own form provider. State management provider, yeah. However, as I mentioned before, this migration wasn't without its difficulties. You can imagine that changing our forms implementations throughout the site and adopting a different logic in large-scale projects, such as ours, is an undertaking on its own, without considering that this work had to be done in parallel with our product's development. First of all, training was an effort with over 40 developers across 6 teams, and 3 countries, having to adapt to React Form's API. Moreover, we had to rewrite a lot of our form logic, including how inputs work, how validation works, how error handling works, and for some permission. We had to decouple existing Redux dependencies that our components and our wrappers had with the Redux store, and rewrite these tightly coupled components. Last but not least, coordination was key, as was rigorous testing to ensure no disruption to our business logic and avoid creating problems in our own production and having to roll back to previous versions and stuff like that. Even with the challenges we faced, we are proud to say that our hard work paid off. Developer experience has improved significantly as more readable and simpler code base made our day-to-day work easier. In addition, the whole process helped us to foster better engagement and skill development among our developers. Furthermore, we can now safely say that our product is faster and lighter, and we've embraced a more modern, maintainable mindset, leveraging hooks from our form setup and state management. This migration also aligned perfectly with our ongoing efforts to integrate TypeScript into our code base, making RHF a wonderful addition in our code base. Now, let's take a bit and discuss how this all came to be. So here's how the migration unfolded. Early in 2024, we began discussing the transition, investigating possible Redux form library replacements like Formic, in order to find what fits our needs best and which library is going to help us better align with future needs as well. This investigation was our very first challenge, as it is a decision that would affect us a lot in the years to come. Secondly, it was important to communicate that such an undertaking would have to happen in tandem with the rest of our development. It would span for a long time, and this meant that we had to get approval from our products team. By mid-year, we allocated a month for the training period for all devs. During this time, some developers educated themselves on React hook form, and the game plan started to form in order to start a more phased migration. In-house workshops were organized where individuals with previous knowledge of React hook form educated those who were new to it. Since then, all new forms have been built using React hook form, and as far as our old forms were concerned, we started with a phased migration plan, beginning with the less impactful form and then trying on some more serious forms. Now, most of our highly used forms have been successfully migrated. Yeah, for us. So, moving on. Yeah. So let's look at some code. I don't know if you can see it pretty well, but even without understanding the code, you can see a difference in size. On the left, you'll see the boilerplate heavy implementation with Redux form, the way we used to work. And on the right, you see React hook forms approach, which is noticeably cleaner and more concise. You can notice that the validation, the way it's done with React hook form, it's just an inline required true, and you don't have to you don't actually have to deal with the meta object as we used to do with Redux form, which is more cumbersome, let's say. You don't need a high order component. You don't need a wrapper to wrap around your actual component like we do in the Redux form implementation, where you can see that the field, the Redux form field, wraps around the select field, which it makes it simpler, easier to maintain, and if you remember from previously, minimizes the re-renders. So it's also faster. Here I've compiled a table which pretty much describes what I've already said to you about field connection, that you don't need the wiring, about being a custom component, you don't need to wrap it with input or meta objects because you don't need them anymore. The error handling, the validation, it's much simpler. You don't need format and normalize or any external functions. The validation is just one line. You can see it right here. And as far as state is concerned, you don't have to tie it up to a Redux store. You can only use form context, which is provided by the forms provider, and you'll be fine. To wrap up, because I know you're tired, a lot of people talked today. I don't know if my English are comprehensible. What?
It's very interesting.
Thank you. We'll have a Q&A right after this one, which is a short one. So yeah, to wrap up, here are some tips from our experience. First, conduct an audit of your forms to identify reusable components. In our example, we had a date picker. It was in many forms. It was kind of hard to not duplicate code, but also don't use it, don't make changes that affect other forms. Plan a phased migration. Start with low impact forms to validate your process. Comprehensive testing is critical. Update unit and integration tests. And manually, I can't stress this enough, you need manual testing as well, because you need to verify those edge cases that only we who work on our products know, and hopefully no one else ever finds out. And system alignment with training workshops and detailed documentation. Lastly, consider using compatibility layers to allow using both libraries and making them coexist for a little while so you can have more time doing the transition right. That was pretty much it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yeah.
Coming from a backend environment where maybe this question will sound fun to you, is Redux different with Redux forms?
So Redux is the store that holds all the values, and Redux form is actually a library for form setup.
Based on that.
Yeah, which uses Redux store. So now you don't need to have Redux because with React hook forms you have your own form provider, and it's not coupled with a global Redux state.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
I'll do the end.
And right,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm always scared to click the big red button.
Just turn off the computer.
Never open it again, right? Get a new
Leave
one.
it here and leave the building.
Come on, dude.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I think, like, if you close the window,
Um,
no.
You did what?